The Porsche Taycan has always been a great car to drive, and it's always been a real fun favourite of ours here at AutoEV. Whether it was this original sort of like four-door sports saloon, or the more practical Sport Turismo, or the Cross Turismo with its slightly more kind of go-anywhere lifestyle orientated ability, it's always been a great car to drive. And it's been quite a success for the company because in 2023, sales of the Taycan grew by 17%, outselling the Panamera by quite a few thousand units. But as we know, the electric car market is a very fluid one, and a lot of manufacturers are now turning their attention to creating some very finely honed and very sort of like finely tuned performance EVs, not just ones that go fast from 0 to 60, but ones that are fun to drive. So in true Porsche tradition, Porsche have now given the Taycan a little bit of a nip here and a little bit of a tuck there to keep it, hopefully, ahead of the pack. But is Porsche's evolutionary rather than revolutionary approach to its models enough to keep the Taycan at the top of the game? Welcome to this week's road test review, welcome to the newly updated Porsche Taycan, and as always, welcome to AutoEV. Now, before I get started on this week's road test review of the new Porsche Taycan, it is of course the time when I'm going to ask you to make sure that you're subscribed to the AutoEV channel. Then once you've done that, make sure you've pressed the little bell button down below, because that's the way you get notified if when our next video is uploaded and it's gone live. Once you've watched the video, if you enjoy it, which I hope you do, then make sure you give it a thumbs up, and of course don't forget, leave us your thoughts in the comment section down below. Let me know what your thoughts are on the cars we review, such as the Porsche Taycan, and of course on the AutoEV channel as a whole. So, a little bit of a history lesson on the Taycan. It was first shown as a concept car, the Mission E concept, in 2015. Gosh, 9 years ago now, they first showed the concept car. But the production version came out at the Frankfurt Motor Show in 2019. We were there. I remember the launch of it very, very, very well. It hardly seems like 5 years ago since the Taycan's been with us. But of course, since then, we've seen different variants of the car come out. There's been a rear-wheel drive version. There's been, as I say, the more practical Cross Turismo with its sort of like slightly more raised ride height and more kind of off-road look about it. And of course, the more kind of sporting estate, the Sport Turismo, which was shown and we tested in GTS, guys. But as I say, the market's changed and there's more competition come out there. And as I say, manufacturers are really focusing now on getting the sort of like the performance EVs more to be driver EVs, if you like. Going 0 to 60 is not really important because a lot of electric cars can do that very, very well. It's making them appeal to the drivers, to the petrol heads, trying to lull them into sort of like the electrified world. And at first glance, it might not appear that Porsche has done an awful lot to the Taycan to refresh it in this midlife facelift. But believe it or not, they've concentrated on the bits that really matter. However, as always, before we move on with the road test, let's take a quick snapshot about the new Porsche Taycan. Well, as before, the car comes in 3 body styles: the 4-door saloon that we have here, the practical Sport Turismo estate, and of course the more off-road capable Cross Turismo. Single motor and dual motor models are available with the addition of a new range-topping Turbo GT with over 1,000 brake horsepower to top the range off. 2 battery options are available, both larger than before, with revised internal chemistry to concentrate on giving the car more efficiency and a better range. Revised styling along with chassis revisions offer a more focused driver's car. And prices in the UK start from £86,500 and now go up to over £186,000 before options. So not cheap, but then the Taycan never really was. But with Porsche concentrating as much on making the car go further as they have on making it go faster, is it all worth it? Well, of course, the only way we're going to find that out is by putting it through the road test that actual car buyers trust when it comes to choosing their next electric vehicle. I wonder what it could be. Oh yeah, it's the AutoEV one. The AutoEV road test review is brought to you in kind partnership with Anderson EV, the British designed, engineered and built home charging solution that blends the best of technology with the finest of aesthetics. With a choice of 2 different units available to provide either 7 kilowatt or 11 kilowatt charging, and over 240 different design combinations to choose from, the Anderson EV home wall boxes are the only charging units to fully conceal their cables within and come with an industry-leading 7-year warranty. Anderson EV are for those of you who love your home as much as your car. Well, as I say, as usual with Porsche, it's always a case of evolution, not revolution. And that's not a bad thing. The Taycan's always been quite a good looking car. They've cleaned up the front of it a little bit. So there's very little at first glance you're going to notice that's different about the new car than there is to the previous cars. But there are changes to be seen. Most of it focuses around the headlamps. They're not as inset as they were before, which I think is a bit of a shame. I quite liked the way they were more kind of inset. It looked more like the concept, the Mission E concept. But they've brought them further out. It's to do with aerodynamics and keeping the efficiency up, and that has been the biggest focus of Porsche when it comes to this updated car. But obviously we'll go on to that in the usability section. What is very impressive now, of course, is these new LED lights. Now, before, each lamp contained 84 separate pixels in the lamps. Want to guess how many's in these ones now? 32,000 in each lamp. Where have they fitted all of them? That's ridiculous. I don't know how they've done it. But anyway, they're amazing at night. I was out driving the car last night, and okay, it was quite a well-lit road I was on. I was picking my wife up at the airport. But in fairness, the spread of light is incredible. I think it's something like 600 metres of light that they can cast along the road in front of you, which is incredible, and it really focuses in on the lane. Of course, there's been a bit of a downside with Taycan, with the headlights being stolen, because they emit so much light but not as much heat. Seemingly it's very popular with, shall we say, urban farmers that are looking to grow things without raising too much awareness in semi-detached houses in certain parts of the country. If you know what I'm saying. Anyway, that's the first kind of thing that you'll notice. I say the lights are a bit more flush with the bodywork, and I say they're much, much brighter than they were before. Gone is also the little kind of teardrop shape that kind of ran down the side of the light, which again is a bit of a shame. It's made it a little bit smoother at the front and less kind of fussy. It's cleaned the front up, but as I say, maybe it's made it look a little bit less distinctive. But that's pretty much it round the front. As I say, it's just a kind of cleaner kind of frontal area that you get with the car. There's still some nice kind of creases up that you get from the headlight up into the front wings like you do here, and when you're inside the car looking down the bonnet, you've got the kind of traditional more kind of raised side profiles of the wings that always have been with Porsche, certainly with the 911, that allows you to place it quite easily on the road. Of course, you get a nice kind of inset Porsche crest on the bonnet there, and down at the bottom also we've got areas for cooling of the battery, and then some technology in there, and obviously this front splitter. There's going to be plenty of options that you can have on the car as well. The range-topping Turbo GT now, with over 1,000 brake horsepower, has got different aero work around the front. It's got more kind of winglets and stuff like that. This is the lead-in rear-wheel drive Taycan. I don't want to call it the basic car, because as we'll find in the pricing, this is over £90,000, this car here. But I quite like the kind of clean, unfussy look that the Taycan's got at the front. But as I say, on first glance, not really a lot has changed. And it's the same round the side. It's exactly Taycan as we've come to know and expect. Wheel sizes start at 19 inches. You're going to want bigger wheels because they look a bit lost, the 19 inch. This car is sitting on the optional 20-inch turbo aero wheels, which I think are a really nice design. Of course, they're not open, they're kind of filled in. They look open, but they're not because of the design of them. And that's designed, again, to optimise airflow. I think these were available in the last car, in fairness. Those front little vents as well take airflow in there and just push it past the wheel, and then it exits out here, so there's less kind of air built up there. But again, that was standard on the last car anyway. What has changed, however, is you now get the little motorised charging flap on both sides of the car now. No, on the driver's side, on the off side in the UK, it's the standard AC charging points, so just for your home wall box. On the near side, that's where you get the DC, the CCS charger, that's there. But they now come with that motorised charging flap as standard, which is good because it was quite an expensive option before. Nice flush door handles, obviously, that pop out when you need to use them. If you're opening the door, they just pop out, or when you unlock the car. Frameless doors, as we've been used to. This lovely kind of swooping fastback design, but it's not a hatchback, remember, it's a booted saloon effectively. But as I say, the side profile hasn't really altered at all. not that it needed to. Now in terms of aerodynamic efficiency, the saloon is the one to have. If you need the practicality, remember you've also got the option of the Sport Turismo, that kind of shooting brake style estate car, and then as you have the Cross Turismo as well, which is the one that has the slightly raised ride height, that has a bit more ability if you want to go off the beaten track. I'll stop short of calling it an off-roader, but that's the one I really do like. I really do like the Cross Turismo. But even so, this is a handsome looking car, I think. This is a really good looking car, and I'm kind of pleased they've left well alone, in fairness. And at the back, they've done exactly the same. There's now a kind of revised light strip across the back here now, and you can have this tinted. This is the Porsche script inset in it behind this kind of perspex. And it's got, you can have it now tinted in blue, I think, as well, which is quite nice. I've seen it illuminated in blue, which is lovely. But I quite like the way this is this just two-tone almost on this car, this clear light strip here against this kind of ice grey metallic paint, which is lovely. Of course, you get a Taycan script across the back, which you can delete or choose to have there. Your boot release button, and then of course your grey kind of plastic bumper at the bottom there with a low set number plate. Obviously, this is the extendable spoiler that comes out at speed as well, to aid with downforce and efficiency of aero. Right, there's no point going on too much because they've left well alone. They've changed a couple of things, maybe made it less distinctive at the front, but maybe in some respects it's a little bit cleaner. It depends on your viewpoint. I still think the car is a great looking car. I think it's a really handsome looking beast. Very Porsche, very Porsche. You can really see that. I hate using this kind of marketing guff on you, but you can see the Porsche DNA through the car with the light strips like the 911 in the front, separate lamps and the wings at the front. Good looking car, this. But that's my opinion. What do you think? Have you got a Taycan? Did you buy it primarily over something like, say, the Audi e-tron GT because of the way the Taycan looked? Or did you go for the e-tron GT because you prefer it to the Taycan? Have you not bought a Taycan because you don't like the way it looks? Do you think they've done enough to it? Do you not think they've done enough to it? As always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Now, if you need practicality, you don't have to go for the Sport Turismo or Cross Turismo, because the normal Taycan is actually quite a practical car. That's 407 litres of storage space that you've got there. Okay, you've got a slightly narrower aperture. It's not a fastback design that might have been given it a bit more practicality. But in fairness, it's quite a decent opening, that. And I say 407 litres, it's all right in terms of boot space. Now you've got a little storage trunk at the back here for cables. So your actual cables can store in the back there underneath the boot floor. And if you're wondering how much 407 litres of boot space is, well, it will take the 4 AutoEV suitcases plus a bit more. So if we put our large one there, a medium size one in next to it, we've got our one carry-on which slides in above that one, and another carry-on which can go in here if I get it the right way up, and there's still space there for soft bags, so that my camera bag would go in there neatly, or another hold all at the top there. So that's plenty of boot space that you get in the car. Plus, if you need a little bit extra, then what you have is a rear seat that folds down in a 40-20-40 configuration to give you a longer load through. But that's not all when it comes to practicality, because remember, it's a Porsche. Because as you'd expect with a Porsche, there's a boot at the front. A frunk, a fruit, whatever you want to call it. Because remember, Porsche's always dead. 911 always had its boot at the front because its engine was in the wrong place at the back. Anyway, what do you get? Well, in this car, it's an extra 84 litres. Well, how much is 84 litres? I hear you all say. Well, let's have a little look and see what we can fit in here, shall we? Once I find the bonnet release. There we go. There's another carry-on. That fits in there, and there's still enough room down at the front. You could slip a briefcase in there, you know, or handbag, or, you know, a laptop bag or something. So, as I say, if you need a practical car, you don't have to go to the Sport Turismo or Cross Turismo, because the standard Taycan takes quite a bit. Right, rear seat accommodation. Well, that obviously hasn't changed because the car hasn't changed size, and it's still very, very good. Shut the door. This particular car is fitted with the optional 4+1 seating, okay? Meaning that obviously you're supposed to get a person in the centre, but I personally wouldn't bother with that because there's no way you're going to get somebody sat in the centre. It's a 4-seater car, so don't spend the extra money getting a central belt for someone, because nobody's going to sit there, because you've still got this raised tunnel here. and storage, you know, so what's the point? You know, just stick the standard 4-seater. Now, it is a proper 4-seat car, in fairness, because, as I mentioned, I had to go and put my wife up at Heathrow the night before I'm filming this. And she wanted me to give a lift to one of her colleagues. So I had her and I were in front, my daughter was in the back, and her colleague was behind me. Now, I'm 5'8", as you probably know if you're a regular viewer of the channel. He was a slight bit taller than me. He was probably 5'10", maybe 6 foot. And he said he had plenty of room sat behind me. And in fairness, I do here behind my driving position. I've got a good amount of leg room. There's decent enough headroom for me. Okay, yes, if you're over 6 foot, that's going to be sort of like encroaching onto you. But maybe that's where you might find the benefit of the Sport Turismo or Cross Turismo with the longer kind of higher roof line that you get with those cars. But in fairness, as I say, I'd be quite happy to do, I would suggest a few hours travelling behind someone of my height in the back here. I don't find this claustrophobic at all. The Audi e-tron GT is much the same. It's the same in the back in terms of that. So it's a proper 4-seat grand tourer, I think. And it's as much as you get, you know, in such cars, you know, well, certainly more than you get in, say, something like a Bentley Continental GT or an Aston Martin DB12 or cars like that. So it's good from that point of view. As I say, there's a little bit of storage there. There's some storage in there. There's face vents. There's no rear climate control in this car. I think it is an option, in fairness, but there's no rear climate control system here. But there's also no... Now, I said there's no USB-Cs in the last review, and I think they're actually below the seat. They are. They're there. I was nearly made a big error there. They're there. They're just on the sort of like the leading edge of the middle of the seat there. So that's where your charging ports are. So that's fine. You do have the flip down armrest with 2 integrated cup holders as well. And as I say, remember, you can fold the rear seat down to give you extra ability to have longer loads through. There's fairly shallow door bins. You get maybe an extra water bottle or your kids' mobile phones or the packets of Polar Mints down in there, but don't expect to get too much, like, you know, maps and stuff like that in there. And there's no storage on the backs of the front seats. But as I say, in fairness, it's not that type of car. It is more of I don't want to say a 2+2, it is a 4-seat car, and it's good in terms of its accommodation. Just stay away from that 4+1 option on the order form if I was you. It's only a few £100, but I just don't see the point of it because you're not going to get anybody sat there. Otherwise, it's as we've come to expect from the Taycan. Now, if you thought the outside looked a cautionary update, the interior is, well, basically they haven't changed anything at first glance. But in fairness, that's not a bad thing. In fact, if anything, the Taycan didn't really need changing inside because it's probably Porsche's most modern interior. In fact, the Cayenne, the new Cayenne, which I've reviewed on my other channel, House of Cars, if you're interested in that, has now changed its interior to mimic more like the Taycan, in fairness, such as the kind of modernity of this. It's not perfect, but it's very good. I won't spend too long in it because we've reviewed Taycan before, and if they've not changed that much, there's no point going on about it. But let me just quickly go through what you've got here. So you've your instrument gauge cluster, which obviously is now a screen. It's hoodless. There's no hood on the top of it like with Porsche, and that mimics the old kind of oval 5-gauge cluster you used to get in the old Porsches like 911s, or my old 944 or 968 that I had the kind of 5-gauge cluster there. And you can configure that depending obviously on what information you want it to show you. So if you want gauges up, you can have that. If you want to change it, you just where is it here? Yeah, you change to you can have G meters on there. You can change it into the center if you just want 2 dials but navigation in the middle. If you want more navigation, so it's a wider screen nav with the speed just at the top there, you can change that. So again, most cars have this type of thing these days. And it's very good, it's very clear, it's very legible, very easy to understand. You also have haptic buttons around the side here, so your light controls are down the left hand side there, and there's some ones on the right here. Now, the Taycan now has got air suspension standard, which was an option before. You used to have steel springs. Now it's adaptive dampers that are now standard, so you can raise and lower the ride height here and change the damper settings up on here with these buttons. There's also a couple of little buttons here. There's a diamond shaped one there and a diamond shaped one, a physical one on the steering wheel. These are shortcut buttons, and you can program them to be what you want. So for instance, speed limit warning on this car, you press it once, that takes off your speed limit warning. You can set that one up for something different as well. You know, if you particularly want, you know, I don't know, your phone to come up all the time when you get in the car, press it, and the phone immediately comes up. So you can change them to configure them to what you want, which is quite handy. Also as well, the lane keep assist, which the car has, is deactivated by a button at the bottom of the cruise control stalk here, which is this third stalk here. And if you press and hold that for 3 seconds, that deactivates the lane keep assist, just comes up on the dashboard and tells me that it's off now. So that's quite nice. You don't have to delve into the screen to change little things like that. Things that would annoy me, certainly, would annoy a lot of people, I think, having them on. Right, talking of the screen, you've still got the screen in the middle here as you would have before. You can option it with another screen in front of the passenger if you wish. The change now is you can have video content on this screen. I think before it was only the one in front of the passenger if you had it, but you can now have video content streaming to this screen as well. There's enough in here, I won't go through it all, but there's enough in here that you'd expect. Obviously things like your Apple CarPlay, which is wireless, there's Android Auto, there's a very good inbuilt navigation system, as you would expect. Very good. All your kind of settings are in here as well, so for changing, you know, the drive modes. There's a separate button now on the steering wheel for that as well. It's a little drive mode button here, down here, which is good. You can change the chassis, you can change the level of assistance on the cruise control, your trip meter, comfort, you know, in terms of the ambient lighting that's in the car, and also the heated seat for driver and passenger as well. Obviously the more options you have, the more things that will be in there. You know, but if you stay away from the options list too much, then as I say, there's not too much to worry about here. And as I say, once you've set most things up, you're probably not going to dive into this too much. You know, you might just go straight to Apple CarPlay or your navigation or your phone or whatever, and then leave it there. The only bit that I don't really like about the car, and it's to do with the screens, is down here, this screen here, which is at the top, you've got your shortcut buttons here for the nav, the music, the phone and the car, and then your permanent climate control there. There's a bit below it which is it's like a mouse pad, you know, like a trackpad, and I don't see the need for it, because all it does is just make it just smeared with fingerprints. Now your oily kind of fingers on there, I don't see the need, and it's not a big stretch there, so I don't understand. It'd been better maybe with a rotary dial. But it's got it, but I just don't see the need for it. So make sure you've got a cloth in the car to clean that with. There's volume control there, there's parking assist, you can switch the screens on and off, and there's, if you press this button here, you can open up the front boot, the rear boot, or your charging flaps as well. So that's all that there. Okay. Storage is as you'd expect. You've still got this little tray underneath this kind of floating console area here. There's 2 exposed cup holders which are big enough for water bottles and coffee flasks. You have centre bin here for things such as your wallet. There's a wireless charging pad in there as well for the mobile phone, so it keeps your phone out of sight, which I like. The door bins are nice, they're lined with carpet, they're big enough for things like my big chunky Sonny's case. And of course you've got, as you'd expect, you get a glove box big enough for gloves. Right, Sport Chrono, obviously in this car as well. Let's talk about the driving position. Now the seats are excellent, the driving position itself is superb. I've been driving this car for a couple of days now and I absolutely adore the driving position of it. It's proper Porsche. You sit down in the car, steering wheel dead ahead of you. Good open footwell as you'd expect. The only thing I'll say, I think these are the standard seats. I'd quite like a bit more adjustment on them. The squab's not bad, but I would just like it to be extend a little bit. And I've driven a Taycan where the head restraints can extend out as well, because I find these just a little bit too far back. Now obviously there are different seat options available in the car, so that's just a tick of an options box. So that's something just to be aware of, however. On saying that, they hold you well. You know, there's good lateral support down the side of your thighs and down the side of your back as well. The steering wheel is probably one of the nicest steering wheels on a car that I've driven. It's just the right size, it's just the right thickness. Very simple 3-spoke design. There's not it's not overloaded with buttons. You know, you've got volume, track search, and a shortcut button on this side, and you've got the configurable buttons for the screen on this side, with your telephone there as well. And as I say, you've got cruise control, which is mounted on a separate column stock on the left hand side. Lights and wipers obviously on a stock as you'd expect, and then your door panel, you've got the usual suspects of your electric mirrors, electric windows, and then up on the door panel itself you've got things for the lock and unlock and 3-position memory of the seats. Okay, right, as I say, I'm not going to go on about it because we've done Taycan to death on the channel in some respects, and it hasn't really changed. There's good things about it, and as I say, it depends on obviously what you tick on the options boxes. This particular car is maybe a little grey and drab inside, but obviously you can choose a different colour. You can choose different materials as well. You can go completely animal free inside the car, and I think that's something that Porsche do better than say Audi on the e-tron GT. If you remember, if you've watched the channel before, with the e-tron GT RS that I drove to Scotland last year, it had the kind of cloth interior. It was just awful. It looked like a base spec sales rep A4. It was just, I don't know why they had done it like that. I think Porsche do the non-leather interiors much, much better than Audi. But there's certainly plenty of choice when it comes to the materials, when it comes to the colours, and when it comes to the options. So just be careful when you're ticking those options on the box, because they're not cheap. Otherwise, what we have is a simple case of, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And that's what we have here. They've tweaked a couple of little things. Other than that, it's the Taycan we've seen before, and it's the Taycan that we've always loved inside. Now, the big advancement comes in the battery that the Taycan now has, because the old car had a battery capacity as standard of 79 kilowatt hours. As standard, that now jumps to 89 kilowatt hours. However, you can go for the Performance Battery Plus, which basically gives the car 105 kilowatt hours, which is up from 93 kilowatt hours, and that's what's fitted to this car. With the rear-wheel drive configuration of the standard Taycan allied to that bigger battery, the WLTP figure is now 420 miles. Now, I admit 420 miles on a WLTP scale is maybe a little bit ambitious, but let's say it can do 350 miles, which I'm led to believe it can. And going by the charge that was on this car when I picked it up, which was at 100%, it was shown over 370 miles capable of. I think 350 miles is doable. And that's way better than the 270 miles that you got from the old car. Basically, what that means is I can drive from my house in Surrey here to my mum's house in the south of Scotland without stopping to charge. Now, if that's the case, that is a big change, and that's going to really change things for Porsche customers. Now, the other thing that's changed is the charging speeds, because they are now up to 320 kilowatts, meaning you can do the usual benchmark of 10 to 80% in just 18 minutes. Again, phenomenally quick. And now, of course, if you're charging from your home wall box, such as I am here with my Anderson 7 kilowatt wall box that I have here, then you're going from flat to full in 15.5 hours. But of course, the car also comes with an onboard 11 kilowatt charger, which will reduce that time down to 10.5 hours. You can later be able to option it up with a 22 kilowatt onboard charger, which will reduce that even further down to just around about 6 hours. So the charging speed is much, much better. 800 volt architecture, and as I say, that 10 to 80% bracket in 18 minutes is phenomenal. That's the time it takes you. You can add over 200 miles of range to this car in the time it takes you to order a coffee and go for a pee on your journey. And I think that is phenomenal, and I think that is where the big sort of like change has been made with the new updated Taycan. They've changed the chemistry of the batteries as well to allow for a much broader charging curve as well, because the peak power that it's capable of taking in, you know, that over 300 kilowatts, it's able to maintain that much greater across its actual charge. So normally what you have is it peaks and then it kind of dips down a little bit to nothing. Whereas the Taycan's battery chemistry and its new electrical architecture means that it can maintain those high charging speeds for much, much longer, meaning that the time you have to stop and charge is a lot less than it used to be. Now, whilst we're on the subject of charging up your electric car, if you're looking for a home wall box unit to charge up your electric car, then take a look at Anderson AV, proud partners of AutoEV when it comes to a road test review, and, funnily enough, also partners with Porsche here in the UK. They're their preferred supplier when it comes to home charging units as well. You can get them in two different varieties, the A2 and the A3 unit, which obviously come with 7 kilowatt or 11 kilowatt capabilities, and it's the only home wall box charger in the UK that comes with the cable concealed actually within the unit. It also has handy lighting as well, so when you approach it and you open up the flat, it lights up so you can see what you're doing in the dark. Also comes with the Anderson app, which is great because you can take advantage of cheap overnight electricity tariffs by just scheduling in your programming, all for the comfort of your mobile phone. Not only are they designed and engineered and built in Britain, but they also come with an industry-leading 7-year warranty, and you can configure the chargers to suit your home as well. I've gone for this nice Windsor grey unit here because it matches my windowsills and my fences round as well. But you can choose from over 240 different combinations, whether it's aluminium, wood construction, even carbon fibre as well. So if you love your home as much as you love your electric car, take a look at Anderson EV, proud partners of the AutoEV Road Test Review. Now, when it comes to performance, it's something that the Taycan has never really lacked in. Now, of course, there's the big, fast turbo GT thing with over 1,000 horsepower. It is 0 to 60 in some 2 point something seconds, and that's fine. But whilst they've all done, sort of like all the Taycans I've driven, you know, sort of like quick 0 to 60 times, it's always been the single motor rear wheel drive car that I've always held up as the one that's just a bit more fun to drive, even though it doesn't have this, you know, the acceleration figures of the other car. It doesn't matter. It's because the fact there's slightly less weight at the front, there's no motor at the front, so the front axle is all it's doing is steering. It's that uncorruptedness, you know, of the steering that I've loved about the rear wheel drive Taycan. And it's no different here. Now, power is up. If you plump for the bigger battery, which this car has, the power goes up to 435 PS. The standard battery car is still above 400. It's 408. So it is more powerful. The previous generation car was in the 300s in terms of its power. So it is a more powerful car. And believe it or not, although the batteries are bigger in capacity, they weigh less. They weigh 9 kilos less. And this is what I'm talking about. This is the way that Porsche have concentrated on, not so much making it look different or making it, oh yes, there is one that goes faster, 0 to 60, but it's not what they've concentrated on. It's the efficiency. It's little changes that they've made that are adding up to be make a big difference in the car. Now, if you activate launch control in this car, it'll do 0 to 60 sprint in 4.5 seconds. Plenty fast enough. That's proper sports car territory as far as I'm concerned, and I don't need anything to go any quicker than that. But obviously you can do if you want, because there's other models in the range, more power, that will do it a lot faster. There we go. But as I say, it's the way in which the car delivers the performance and the way in which this rear wheel drive Taycan behaves on the road that I just love about it. The steering is just lovely. It's so direct, it's so lovely and so responsive. It's oily smooth. It's you go into a bend and it's just the roll of your wrist and the car just responds, and there's no step, there's no lag in the steering at all. It just works. It just does exactly as you're asking it to do. And it's the same with all the controls, in fairness. The throttle pedal, you know, it's got a firmness to it, you know, that's not that electric switch like some cars are. You've really got to push down on it to make it accelerate, and I like that. That's good. It's me that's doing it. It's not the car, it's me. The car's behaving like I'm asking it to behave, and I like that. It's proper sports car stuff. The brakes, Porsche do an adaptive regen, if you like. So when you take your foot off the accelerator pedal in a Taycan, there's no regen. The car, because the Porsche say that's the most efficient thing, just let the car coast. That's at its most efficient. And shouldn't the driver decide when they want to brake? Couldn't agree with you more, Porsche. Could not agree with you more. So I like the fact, if you want it, you can add it, and it's an intelligent one where the car will work out how much regen it needs, depending obviously on what's in front of it. So that's clever. So it's not overly adaptable. So if you are a fan of one pedal driving, you know, it's not really here, if I'm being honest with you. The suspension, I said before, they now get, all models get adaptive air suspension. It was an option before. It's standard across the range now. So it used to be steel springs on the car now. No, it's air suspension now. And what that has done is just transformed the way the car goes down the road without needing to spend the extra on the options list. So there's less body roll in corners, the car stays more flat, there's less pitch when you accelerate, there's less dive when you brake. The car just stays more flat and it just behaves better. You know, you swing it into a bend and you just don't feel like you're about to kind of roll out the seat. Not that you did really with the last car, in fairness, but it's there. You don't have to spend any extra money on it. It's got it as standard, and I love that. Now, there are different drive modes with the car, and it's done off this little switch on the steering wheel here. So if I go to range, obviously that's like eco, isn't it? But it is and it's not. It doesn't really dull the throttle response down that much, in fairness. You still have that kind of real deliberate push on the accelerator to pedal to get the car to do anything. But what it does do is it drops it down on the suspension a little bit to make it slip through the air a bit better. That's quite clever. I prefer that than having something that says eco. But anyway, that's what it does. And then from there we go to normal, where the car just sits slightly more up, more usable on the day-to-day, speed bumps, that type of thing, as you're going about your kind of daily commute or, you know, your journey as you see fit. When the road does open up and get a little bit more twisty, however, you can flick it into sport, which is the one that I quite like, because now everything just sharpens up a little bit. Now we've got a little bit more tactility in the steering, we've got a bit more response from the throttle as you kind of push it through a bend and you accelerate out the other side. And that's what I mean, that's what I love about this rear wheel drive one. As I say, it just digs in at the back. It allows a little bit of slip as well. You can really just get the tail nudging out as well if you're inclined to do so. Obviously I'm not, and the sort of, like, you know, more kind of urban suburbia that I live around here in. But on a longer trip or on a more kind of focused sort of, like, you know, country road, you can get a little bit more lean on the back, a little bit more sort of like stuff going on at the back end. Sorry, just going through a really tight width restriction, which I've just noticed seems to be a lot narrower when you're in a Taycan. And then from there, you go to Sport Plus, which is the all singing, the all dancing, all hairy canary, let's go for it type of drive. Yeah. No. Be sensible, Brian, be sensible. So you see what I mean? You've got a real jack of all trades with this car. And I'm just really not sure that you'd need much more, in fairness. I really don't. I just think this ticks. This rear wheel drive car still ticks so many of the boxes that I love about this car. And all they've managed to do is make it better. The ride quality is superb. The steering, as I say, is sublime. The weight of the controls is near perfect. You know, you come into sort of like a roundabout and you pitch it in and you just get on the throttle and it immediately responds. And I say it's not a switch that takes you unaware. It's you doing it. It's just a bloody brilliant car. That's what it is. And they've done it. They've made it better. And I love Porsche for that. And it's the time when I do think maybe that evolutionary approach to stuff, rather than just like, here's a brand new car that was developed. No, you had a good car before, just change little bits of it and make it just that little bit better. And they have. It's absolutely superb. Very quickly, just to finish off, driving position. Well, as I say, like I said earlier, it's absolutely perfect. The steering wheel's the correct width, it's the correct diameter. It's just nice to hold. You sit dead centre in the driving, like on the driving side. You got a lovely straight ahead driving position. Nothing's a kilter. You know, you've got everything's at an easy reach. Everything's relatively easy to see as well. You know, in terms of if you are looking for one of the screens to use one of the buttons, then as I say, it's not a big eye movement away, because you've got this screen here and this one more that's kind of raised up a little bit on a slope. So if you want to adjust the temperature, you know, you're literally, it's just a hand placement away. The movement from your hand from the wheel to there is such a short distance. It's really easy to do. I'm really struggling to find fault with this car. I really am, other than the fact that it's £100,000 and I can't afford £100,000 to buy it. But I am struggling to find a fault with the Taycan. It's great. It's a sharper drive than the Audi. You know, a lot of people think, you know, they're just the same car. One wears an Audi badge, one wears a Porsche badge. That's it. You're just, you know, you're paying for the badge. You're not. You're paying for a sharper car. The Audi does the GT thing really, really well. It's a superb Grand Tourer. But Porsche build a sports car. And irrespective whether it's this single motor, least powerful rear-wheel drive car, or whatever this turbo GT thing is like, whether it's that, they're sports cars. You can even have that turbo GT without rear seats with this Weissach patch and a roll cage. That's how focused Porsche are on making the Taycan a driver's car. But you don't need to spend £200,000 for one of those. This does it just as well, just as good. It's brilliant. Right, let's ignore the fact that you can now spend £200,000 on a Taycan if you go for the new Turbo GT with Weissach package and a few options on it. Yeah, £200,000. Mind you, it does have 1,000 brake horsepower, and I'm sure it does drive well, but 200 large. There we go. Anyway, the range starts with this car, the Taycan. That's the rear-wheel drive one, at £86,500. But this particular car, as it stands, is £96,313. So I say it's not a cheap car, but the Taycan never really was, in fairness. But there is one option on this particular car that I do think is worth it, and that's the bigger battery. I think it's the Performance Plus battery. So to get that over 100 kilowatts and get that massive range on it, then I think that is well worth ticking that options box. Now, the range obviously has broadened as well, and all the range is incorporated into this new facelift. So Sport Turismo and Cross Turismo as well, they also get the updated styling and all the other bits and pieces. But just bear in mind, if you're going for, say, the Sport Turismo, you can't get that in the Turbo. The Turbo GT is a kind of separate almost entity in that sense. So if you want an extra practicality for the Sport Turismo, there's no GTS as yet. Whereas there was with the older car, if you remember. I don't know whether that's something that's going to be coming out. The GTS models in Porsche usually come towards the end of the model's life, so that's maybe something we will see in the future. And if you're going for the Cross Turismo, the one that has the, you know, the sort of the adaptable ride height, you know, for the more kind of off-road sort of lifestyle, if you like, that's only available in the dual motor cars. So obviously the Taycan 4, the 4S, the Turbo and the Turbo S. You can't get it on the base Taycan or, as I say, the Turbo GT. So as I say, not a cheap car, but then again, it is a real quality piece of kit. Some options are going to be very personal to you, whether you need them or not, but certainly the one that I would certainly option up is that bigger battery. So you're sat in the Porsche showroom, you're just about to sign your order form for your new Taycan, and you go, oh, hang on a minute, what else could I buy for the same money? Well, as I said, the market has changed, and of course there are more high-performance, driver-focused electric cars available. But the other thing I want to make clear is, we always did say, right, when we first reviewed Taycan, because the market space that maybe it plays to is so small, and dare I suggest with the changes to the battery and the amount of range that the car now has, it's no longer just viable to compare like for like in terms of electric against electric. You're going to have to maybe compare it to internal combustion engine cars as well. Why not? Especially when it's capable of doing the range that this one is. So let's have a little think about what else you could look at. Well, if we do start with those EVs, because I say there's much more of them on the market space now, the main rival you're going to think about, of course, is the Audi e-tron GT. And like the Taycan, it's just had a major facelift as well. Now, I love the e-tron GT. I think it's a great car. In fact, the e-tron GT RS I drove to Scotland, but I said was probably one of the best GT cars I'd ever driven. I think it's a phenomenally good car, so I'm looking forward to driving the facelifted car to see what they've done to that. It does feel different to the Taycan, that's what I will say. This, I think, is a bit more driver focused. Audi's a bit more GT focused, maybe hence the name. But that, I think, is your first, you know, your first alternative that you're going to think about. Of course, Lotus with the new Emaya. Now, Lotus have moved away from their traditional market space in some respects of, you know, small, lightweight sports cars, and they're embracing electrification in a big way, as we've seen with their new models that they've got coming out. And of course, they're part of the Geely group now, and there's a lot of know-how, electrical architecture know-how within that they can draw upon. So that's a car that's going to be certainly under consideration if you're looking at this. The other car that's from within the same group, dare I suggest, we're really looking forward to seeing, of course, is the new Polestar 5, We've seen it in prototype form. We saw it as the concept, the precept concept, much the same as Taycan was shown as the Mission E. Polestar 5 was shown as the precept, and now we've seen prototypes. Hopefully we'll get to see the finished car maybe start of next year. So that's a car, again, promises good efficiency and great range and very fast charging as well, and that's going to be key with cars in this market space. So that's there. There are other two cars which are more kind of saloon biased, but certainly worthy in terms of price wise where this Taycan sits, and that is our car of the year last year, the BMW i5, the M60 model. That's a phenomenally good car, and I know a lot of people berate me for saying that, but I love that i5. It's a great car, and the M60 is a proper sledgehammer when it comes to the performance side of it. So I think that's a consideration if you're looking at this market space. And of course from Mercedes-Benz, you've got the EQE, Mercedes-Benz AMG EQE 53. That could be under consideration as well. And again, not a cheap car. So that's going to be something you're going to consider too. And okay, in the UK it has a problem because it's only available to special order and it's left-hand drive only. But we've got to mention the Tesla Model S Plaid, because again, at round about the sort of like the six-figure mark, what a lot of performance. And of course it's a Tesla. And as much as I'm not Tesla's biggest advocate, I think that's a great car. I love the Model S. It's just a shame in the UK it's left-hand drive only. And it doesn't quite have the quality of the other cars I've mentioned. It's a bit more kind of the traffic like Grand Prix King, rather than sort of like, you know, hard cornering and sort of like a real driver's car. But even so, it's certainly worthy of a mention. There's another car which I seem to mention an awful lot, which we've still to drive and still to see, although it's been shown in the press, is the Maserati Gran Turismo Folgore. Okay, it's only two doors, but it's a Grand Tourer. It's Maserati. That's what they do. They do GT cars and do them well. So I think that car is also under consideration as well. And another brand that I mention almost pretty much in every review as well is Jaguar. Now, look, whatever's happening at Jaguar, I don't know, but the rumour is that over the next 12 months, they're pretty much phasing out every model that you can buy new today. So, you know, the XF and XE have gone, the F-Pace is going, the E-Pace is going, the I-Pace is going, and there's going to be a period of time where you can't buy new Jaguar. And they say this is to do with the fact that what they're doing is they're going to relaunch the brand in an entirely new market space. And they reckon the first car that's coming out is an all-electric GT car. In terms of price-wise, it's quite high, and I think you're probably looking at something more along the top end of the Taycan range, where they're suggesting it's going to be, you know, 150,000 plus, which is brave for a car wearing a Jaguar badge. But let's wait and see. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt, okay? But like I said at the start, you've also going to have to consider cars that maybe have internal combustion engines as well, such as like this market space, and such as the breadth of ability, and not just the performance, but the range and efficiency that the Taycan gives you. Why would you not consider it against something maybe such as a Bentley Continental GT or an Aston Martin DB12, you know, or a Ferrari Roma or something like that? So perhaps you might consider those cars too. So here's what we like and what we don't like about the new Porsche Taycan. Well, we like the massive improvements to the range and efficiency that Porsche have managed to achieve. Its performance, the improved ride and handling, the styling is still on point for us, and for us it still feels like a proper Porsche. We don't like, well, you do have to spend a little bit extra to get that bigger battery with the bigger range. The price is getting higher, especially with the options that we feel are actually necessary. And unfortunately, depreciation is likely to be high, as it has been with the previous car. The Taycan has always been a great car to drive, and this midlife facelift has done nothing to change that. In fact, if anything, it's made it even better in a lot of ways. And not only that, it's a car that you just know deserves that Porsche badge on the front, because it's a car that manages to blend driver involvement and fine performance with an air of practicality that Porsche just seem to get right. But now what they've managed to do as well is they've made it even more easy to live with a better efficiency, better charging speeds and a much greater range. Now we have a car that's capable of whisking 4 people plus luggage in excess of 300 miles on a single charge. And that, I think, is the real key with this car. Yes, other people do go faster and further for less money, but not with this much fun or this much style. In our book, the Taycan is back on top. Thank you once again for watching another road test review on AutoEV. As always, please make sure that you are subscribed to the AutoEV channel. Then once you've done that, make sure you press the little bell button that's down below, because that's the way you get a notification of when our next video is uploaded and it's gone live. If you've watched it and you have enjoyed it, then please give it a thumbs up, and of course don't forget, leave me your thoughts in the comment section down below. Are you a Taycan owner? What do you like about your car? What don't you like about your car? Are you about to go and buy a new Taycan? What's making you go and have a look at it rather than say the Audi e-tron GT, or rather than waiting on one of those other new rivals that I was mentioning coming out? Let me know in the comment section down below. Now remember, we're also across all social media networks, at Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, X, we're there as well, so please give us a little follow, because that does help the channel. And if you are interested in buying an electric car, might not be a new Porsche Taycan, might be a used one, or it might be a used Renault Scenic, or a Megane, or whatever, a Tesla, but you need to know all there is to know about it before you go and sign on the dotted line. Well, what you need to do is have a wade through the AutoEV video back catalogue on the YouTube channel, because if it's been a new car, a new electric car in the last 4 or 5 years, we'll have subjected it to the actual road test that car buyers trust when it comes to choosing their next electric vehicle, the AutoEV one. All that remains for me to say is thank you once again for watching. Thank you for continuing to support me and the channel. I'll see you again soon.